All right, we're going to get started here. Appreciate everybody coming out this afternoon, or for some of you, still a little bit morning time on the West Coast, but really appreciate you coming out for our monthly product focus. This week, or I should say this month, we're going to be talking about a few different series, one MPI and two refreshes on products. The ZK1 series we presented by Carrick, one of our FAERCs down in the Florida territory area, southeast, and I'll be talking about the HR30, and then Carrick will finish it up with the TF38 refresh. Both the HR30 and the TF38 have been around for a while. We're hoping we'll get you a quick refresh on those two product lines since they are very popular for us. But super excited to hear about the MPI product, which is the ZK1 series. So go ahead, Carrick, when you're ready, you can get started on that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Dave. This is Carrick. I'll be talking about ZK1 now. So here's a picture of the product. A couple months ago in August, I presented the new and exciting two-piece FFC connector type. Today, I'm going to introduce the second series in that category, the heavy-duty ZK1. On the Hirose website, you can find a feature page for the two-piece FFC type, and there are three new series you can explore on that page: TF70 from the last August MPF, ZK1, and a third one, TB4, which we haven't NPI'd yet. So the main idea about this type of product is, until now, applications in harsh environments usually require discrete wire connectors, like very harsh environments. And this is fine for very small amounts of wires, but if like up to 50 pins are required, then that can add a lot of cost and weight, not to mention a lot of assembly time. Each contact of a wired connector, as you all know, needs to be crimped and inserted into the receptacle. But for this two-piece flex connector, you just push the FFC into the plug housing and insert the retainer to lock it in place. So here are some dimensions. When compared to a wired connector that has automotive rating and 2 millimeter pitch, similar to this connector, it has very similar size to a wired connector and similar durability as well, at least to the automotive type. It's a little different from the other two-piece FFC connectors that we're launching in that this one has two rows. It has two contacts on the PCB and two FFCs. This means that the mounting pitch is actually 1 millimeter on the PCB rather than 2 millimeters. All right, so let me talk about the durability. Hirose tried to break the ZK1 and it was very difficult. Let's give a few examples. When pulling the cable, the retention is well over 100 newtons. I've seen tests where it goes over 150 newtons. Hirose also vibrated the connector with a root mean squared acceleration of 105 meters per second squared. That's a lot of G's. That's about 10 G's, which is about 5 times more intense than a US car V1 requirement, and slightly less than a US car V2 requirement. ZK1 is meant to withstand vibration at the same time as it's subjected to high temperatures and high humidity. You see we have a temperature cycle. Contact resistance remains reasonable even after 1,000 cycles between -40 and 125 degrees C. So as I mentioned, there's no complicated assembly manual to read for this connector, and there's no tooling. The plug can be assembled easily and without much training. Rather than crimping the wires, the FFC can be simply pushed into the housing until it clicks, and then the retainers inserted behind for security. So ZK1, the motivation for this, it was originally made for automotive battery packs. And within those types of packs, voltages between cells can add up to a very dangerous amount. Hirose two-piece FFC connectors like this all have fully enclosed FFC contacts within the cable housing, so you can't access them with your fingers. We tested it with a extra small fake finger. So no one can get their finger in. Here's our contact slide. As always, Hirose is relying on our competitive advantage of making superior contact structures to withstand harsh environments without increasing the connector size. 2-point independent contacts, like you can see in the big blown up picture, are they maximize the reliability by touching in 2 separate places with 2 separate spring-loaded contacts. Even if one of these contacts is momentarily disconnected due to dust or vibration, the contact resistance remains low because the other contact remains in touching. Another voltage slide, we have the shortest creepage distance in this connector is the 0.6 millimeters between the traces on the PCB. And then this is increased to 0.85 millimeter between contacts as they enter the header housing. This is the upper left picture. Considering these creepage distances and the material properties of the PCB and the connector, 50 volts between each pin is easily achievable. If a higher voltage rating is required, Hirose may be able to accommodate that with a test report of ZK1 or a depopulated version where you remove some contacts or a different connector with a higher voltage rating. So as you can see on the slide, we have some car applications we're going for. I've seen success in battery packs and lighting. And then harsher environments in the industrial space are where we're asking for help to go find some new uses for it. Let me tell you a story here. So last year, I worked with an automotive battery pack customer who was desperate for a solution like this. They were using a competitor solution. They wanted to connect all of their cells to the battery management system using one large FPC, and the competitor solution was really big and difficult to operate. It was very hard to remove. I couldn't remove it myself. They gave me a sample, couldn't get it out. And then they were worried their production schedule would be stalled because they couldn't keep this connector in their design. And so luckily, Hirose was able to develop ZK1 in time and solve the issue. They were looking all over for this kind of product. At this time, there's very limited competitor solutions available, which lends Hirose a very strong position if a customer needs this type of product. So what I want to leave you with here is the 3 types of customers that you can promote this to. First of all, an engineer who dislikes FPC connectors because they're too fragile. This is not fragile, and it is an FPC connector. Number 2, any customer using a high pin count internal wire to board connector, they can save a lot of time when they don't have to crimp that with this type. And third, an automotive customer who's already using FPC. They may want to increase their durability of their connectors. Any questions about this stuff? Thank you for your attention.
Any questions for Carrick on the ZK1? I didn't see anything pop up in the chat box, so feel free, by the way, if you do have questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to throw them into the chat box. That ZK1 series is a great little product. Definitely see development in the automotive markets, but certainly consider this for your robotics and industrial type customers. We certainly are seeing folks pushing the temperature and the performance requirements within those market spaces, and this connector would be a great fit for that type of customer if they're hesitant on using a traditional flex connector in that environment. So certainly a pretty cool product for that line. Do look forward to some opportunities and design regs rolling through on this product line going forward. I will cover the HR30 here next. So let me go ahead and get that presentation up and running for you.
I just saw a question in the chat. What do you mean by pitch pack? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. We do have samples available.
Just a small little box with the parts and so the customer can, sort of plug and play with them.
We absolutely can send you some samples.
Okay.
Typically, the sales samples are mounted or ready to go for a demonstration purpose versus a raw
Right.
inventory part. So
Right.
those sales samples are perfect for that.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got a sample kit that's ready to be presented.
Yeah. Typically, the
Perfect.
sample kits come ready to go with the necessary components. So you're doing a full demo, and that's true not just of this product, but many of our products. When you order the samples, if you're in our sample portal, you maybe through the extranet site, and you go into the sample portal and you order up a sample. When that comes in, what you'll notice, or I should say, when you go to order it, just in the parts box, type in the word sample, and that will bring up all of our sales sample versions of items. So you'll find any of the sales version samples, and those sales versions, just for sake, because I know we'll have a couple extra minutes here. So when you request a sales sample version from the sample portal, and it'll have the word sample in the name of it. So it'll have the series name, ZK1 sample. All right. And when you see that in the system, that is going to be a complete kit of an item, right? The part's going to come ready to go. So if it's a wire to board connector, it's going to have wires already crimped into the housing, and both the receptacle and the plug. In the case of a board to board, it'll be PC board mounted on both sides, or a board to flex. You'll have a small piece of FPC, would say the micro board to flex type product. So the best way to find those, you go into the sample portal, you type in the word sample into the parts field, and when you do that, it'll bring up all those sales sample options, and the MPIs will all get posted in there. We keep that pretty updated with content, so be sure to check that out. Great question. Thanks for the lead into that talk about the sample system. Awesome. All right. I'm going to be talking about the HR30 series. And this product has been around for a while. Many of you may already be familiar with it. At least I hope you're all familiar with this product. This is a circular IP68 rated design. And when we say IP67 or 68, obviously 67 has a defined value, 30 minutes, 1 meter of water. But IP68 specifically calls out that you have to specify what that number and value is. And so in this case, for ours, it's 2 meters, 14 days. This is in a mated condition with the cap installed. If it's not, if it's panel mount and you don't have the plug plugged into it, it's meant to be in a mated condition. We do have caps available that you can put the cap over it to give you that sealed value, or when it's in a mated condition, you are sealed. In an unmated condition, they are not sealed. So I just want to stress that. That question came up recently, so I wanted to point that out. So let's dive in a little bit deeper onto this product. So first off, this is a push-pull type design. And customers are very familiar with threaded connectors. They're very familiar with bayonet style connectors. They may know the term push-on connectors. This is none of the above. This is a push-pull design, which means it actually does latch to the receptacle when you put the plug in. There is a locking mechanism as it locks together, and it stays in place. If the customer wants to release it, they grab the outer shroud portion of the connector, they pull back on it, and that releases the latch. This is very different than a traditional push-on type connector. Push-on connectors are friction lock only. So when you slide them on, it's just the friction that holds them into place. This is an actual latching type lock design, and you do have to pull on that shroud to do the release. This is a benefit for customers that are looking for moving away from especially threaded connectors. We see a lot of circular threaded connectors, and I've heard the complaints in the field about folks dealing with, well, they didn't thread it down tight enough, and over time, maybe shock and vibration caused it to come apart, or they didn't thread it down tight enough and they didn't get the seal that they were expecting out of the connector. Those things can happen with threaded connectors. Bayonet connectors are great, right? They do help with that. But some customers do find some difficulty dealing with bayonet style connectors, and they're looking for even simpler in the design. And that's where a push-pull type style comes into play. This is not the only push-pull product we have in our line, but this specific one has been around for a while, tried and true, good pin count options available. And customers have certainly adopted it in many different applications. The other cool thing about this product is its size. And just showing you here, this is the 10 and 12 position design. You can see the overall diameter of this product is fairly small, about 15 and change millimeters in diameter on the plug side, which would be the larger of the dimensions. And when you're dealing with tight spaces, think medical, small motors, actuators, and sensors. Those are great potential markets for a push-pull connector in this size class. Traditionally, folks think about like the M12 connector in this type of space. M12s, they're certainly ones out in the market there, very much known in the industry standard. And this connector is certainly not compatible with an M12. But we do find that customers prefer the push-pull latching lock design over the thread-down M12, which is probably the most common design you see in that market. I have seen push-on styles, but not push-pull in that space, and other various styles of latching that folks have come up with for those to try to avoid the threading. This simplifies it all, makes it very easy to work with for the customer, and again, keeps that overall size to a minimum. Here's the 3 and 6 position version, a little bit smaller housing, 12 and change millimeter diameter, just under 13 millimeter diameter for the plug side of this connector, and overall the body length is also fairly short in design. This connector has a plastic housing on it, and this also has a benefit of being light in weight. Some of your customers may be looking at more portable devices or more compact devices where weight could be a factor. This is small and lightweight because of that plastic housing. So that's certainly a benefit when you're working with your customers, to ask them about their application and understand where it's going to be used and whether or not that weight and that they could potentially benefit from going with a plastic connector instead of the traditional connector that's a metal body, whether machined or cast. They can get a little bit heavier and often are bulkier in overall size and design. This chart here is a really neat one that I like and really appreciate the product team putting this together for us. And this has the positions, pin counts, along with the variations, crimp and solder on these designs. We have, when you're buying something like a plug, there often you can get it with either male contacts or female contacts, and the same on the receptacle. So you want to be aware of which variation the customer is buying. Be careful that they're not buying a plug with male contacts and a receptacle with male contacts, because yes, you can do that, and you want to be careful of that. You can see it right here on the 6-pin variation. Standard plug, male contacts right here. And then you can see a receptacle or a jack with male contacts. They would not mate with each other. So you want to make sure if you have a plug with male contacts that you're using on the jack or the receptacle the female contacts in that situation, or vice versa. Customers do sometimes ask me where you should use one or the other, and the usual description that I give to customers is look for where the power is coming from. Typically, you want female sockets in that application, and you want the pins to be on the mating side of it. So the best way I like to remember this is think of your home electrical outlet. When you plug in your electrical outlet, the lamp has the pins, and the socket in the wall is the female socket. So that keeps it very easy. The power is coming from the wall. Just remember that in the back of your head when you're picking pins versus sockets on any of the circular products in the line. This is a great way to identify what the best situation is for customers to use in this. This product is meant for outdoor usage, although I've seen it used in medical environments, in operating rooms, and equipment indoors where they might need the seal for other issues. But you can use this connector in an outdoor environment. And I want to stress this because many folks think that you cannot use a plastic bodied connector in the sunlight, and that is generally true. But this product holds up extremely well, and we did perform testing for a 2,000-hour sun exposure test. And as you can see in the pictures here, you can see the initial value, a beautiful, nice, shiny connector. And over time, as we approach that 2,000, you start to see some changes in that plastic as it's exposed to some pretty intense sun testing and in that environment. And we've also, perform a water spray test at the same time to make sure that we're still maintaining at the end of that 2,000, we're still maintaining our IP rating. The other aspect of this testing that we performed was we looked at that house and said, hey, it doesn't look pretty at this stage, but is it still durable? And the answer is yes. And you can see it right here in the test results. The plastic body. The initial values were, 177, 178. You can see it didn't vary a lot on average over the test sample set. You can see it didn't vary all that much from the initial value. So this is a big benefit for customers looking for that that confidence that they can choose this plastic body connector in that outdoor environment. Again, typically folks do not think plastic body connectors in outdoor environments because of sun exposure, and that is a very legitimate concern, and this connector does handle that type of environment. So bear that in mind when you're working with customers. If you hear that and they say, I think I have to go with something metal, well, ask them why. And if they tell you it's because they're concerned about sun, well, we could show them this document. We can provide test data as needed to help alleviate those concerns. Another big question we get asked on the HR30 series is support for high-speed data. And here we go. We got some Category 5E Ethernet testing up to 1 gigabit data performance. You can see how we've paired out the contacts inside this connector to support the performance levels. This is a great option for customers looking for an alternative to an RJ style or an M12 or some of the other solutions that are on the market that provide that IP rating. Remember, this thing was small. If you look at an RJ connector running Ethernet and you try to put a circular connector on the outside, it ends up being a very big connector. And they traditionally are like 1 and change inch in diameter, whereas this, was still running at the same 15.5 millimeter diameter range on the connector size. So it's significantly smaller overall, actually less than half the size overall of what they would be looking at if they were using one of the traditional RJ style connectors and running excellent performance. You can see here in the results that we had no problem passing the 1 gigabit Ethernet data speed. In the industrial environment and medical environment, we don't usually see customers pushing higher than this, but keep an eye out for your information on new product releases. We do have a new product coming out in the future that's going to go 10 gigabit at this speed. So keep an eye on your email. Watch us on or follow us on LinkedIn. There'll be announcements when that product is released out in the open market space. So one thing I wanted to point out about cable selection here when you're working with these connectors, there's solder versions and there are crimp versions. When you look at the catalog, you'll typically say, 26 to 30 gauge is what this product supports. And the answer is yes, it certainly does on the crimp contacts. But we want to point out to customers that are looking for some kind of variation that there is the solder cup versions. You do have the solder pot sizes in the specifications. Be aware of that. That is really your governing factor, your primary governing factor on the size of the conductor itself going into the solder pot. The other aspect of this you want to be careful of when specifying is looking at the diameter of the insulator and the overall jacket of the cable. Try to keep these sizes in mind. Certainly you can put a bigger conductor, let's say, in the 3-contact version with a 1.1 millimeter solder pot. But if you can't get into the diameter range on the jacket of the cable, then you're going to have some trouble. So you want to be aware of this. It's in the specifications in the catalog. It's a great tool to present to the customer and point this out to them so they can select the right cable for their applications. Some additional specifications. I won't get into all the details on these, but there are certainly specifications available. This is all right in the catalog, so you don't have to look too far for it. I just wanted to point out the current rating at 3 positions, 5 amps per pin, and the rest of the series is all running at 2 amps per pin. And when you think about the size of this connector, that's actually pretty good capabilities within the product line. So Hirose's really stepped it up on performance, on power, but honestly, most of the customers I've interacted with have been using this in a more of a sensor data type application than anything else. So speaking of applications, I've kind of trickled those throughout the presentation. Servo motors, obviously small size stuff. We're talking that 2 to 5, 5 amp, depending on pin count. In the robotics realm, I see a lot more in the sensors related to that. In the test and measurement market, I've also had a bunch of customers in the medical space looking at this product line, and certainly we've seen that abound with a significant portion. Some of our significant customers are using these in medical applications. So I want to make sure I mention that because I didn't have medical on this slide here, but we do have a couple of significant customers. And the key factors that they've noted to us, that they've told to us, the reason why they selected the product was its size. That was number 1 on the list. It didn't matter which project I looked at and everybody talked about, it was the size of the connector that was the big driving factor. Second thing was that push-pull locking feature. That was a big plus for folks. They also really like the cost point on this thing. This is a plastic body connector, so when you think about it comparing to some of the metal body connectors, there's obviously a cost savings for them in that application. And then last but not least, the IP rating, IP68 capable, IP67 and IP68 capable design within the product line. So this product certainly can fit with a variety of markets, industrial sensors, small motors, any kind of environment in the medical where they're looking for splash capabilities, or if you often hear that IP54 rating. Well, this can handle that, no problem with the IP68 and IP67 capabilities. No issues at all up in that realm. So medical customers are a great opportunity. Actually, I think one of the customers that uses this product uses an infusion pump just from a market standpoint. So there's certainly capabilities to medical customers in this realm. And that's all I have on the HR30. Any questions regarding that product? I didn't see anything in the chat box. Just give it a moment here and then all right, Carrick, you can go ahead with the our final product, which is the TF38.
All right, I'm back. So I'm going to talk about the TF38 and vertical FFC connectors in general. So vertical FFC connectors are generally used due to space constraints. In recent monthly product focus trainings, we've discussed right angle 0.5 millimeter pitch FFC connectors. We've done TF31 and FH12, but sometimes those don't work because of space constraints. So here I'm going to show you the vertical types, which are often sold with higher margins. Hirose offers 5.5 millimeter pitch vertical FFC connectors. You can see them on the screen, some pictures of them. It covers a huge variety of pin counts and applications. TF38 is widely applicable to almost every application. It's the lowest cost while remaining stronger than the competition. Moving to the right, we have the vertical FH12, which is offered at pin counts below 10, so some simpler connections. Then lower left, we have FH40. This is the most popular on the screen due to its dominance in automotive applications, and it feels very strong. FH48 is meant to be used with shielded FFC for protecting high-speed signals from EMI. Typically, customers know when they need to shield their FFC, and so this is the key point here. And then those four kind of round out Hirose's 0.5 millimeter vertical FFC offering. But we have our new FH67, which is very impressive, and it has a one-action lock and many features. The FH67 is our top push product, but each of these other connectors has its own situation in which it's the most appropriate to promote. So here we are introducing TF38, the topic of this presentation. It's a 0.5 millimeter pitch vertical FFC connector with high retention force and low cost. Including the latch, TF38 is 5 millimeter wide and 3 millimeters deep, which is a much smaller footprint than any similar right angle FFC connector. Here you can see to the right that TF38's header has both the front and the back. This means that the mounting pitch is actually 1 millimeter, even though the mating pitch is 0.5 millimeters. So on the right side picture, you can see how the connector is shipping in. It ships in with the latch up. That's the open position. Then after you insert the cable, you push the latch down until you hear and you feel the click. This is really best shown with a sample rather than a slide like this. So this is the part of the presentation where I tell you to go out and get some samples and try this yourself, because that's the only way to really experience the strong lock sensation. So sometimes we talk about front flip connectors and bending up the cable and maybe it opens the latch. Due to the locking direction of the latch, it doesn't matter which way you bend the FFC in this case with the vertical type. You can bend it forward or backward, and either way it can't open the lock by pushing on it. So people ask me whether retention tabs are necessary. I don't know if that's really the right question, but the answer is while they are not absolutely necessary for this product, I recommend everyone to use them because they provide about 3 times increased retention force, and there's almost no downside at all. In my experience, FFC suppliers will change the shape of the end of the FFC to accommodate a connector change at very little cost. So here's our specs. They're pretty standard for FFC connectors in general. It's gold plated like almost all Hirose FFC connectors, and it has high temperature 105 Celsius resistance. All right, here's our scaled down video. So you can see the box around the connector. When you have these kind of constraints where you can't access the PCB very easily, there's really no way you would be able to mate a right angle FFC connector in there. So a vertical type is really critical there. And while this video is supposed to be showing the FH67 here, that's just the video I had on hand. This is the one action type, but TF38 can also just as easily be mated like this. You just push your thumb forward to push down the latch. It's meant for this kind of situation. So recently, a colleague of mine was opening up his TV, as he does, and he found a Hirose TF38 inside. This is a power control module. I assume the TV's, made at high volume. This kind of TV office equipment power module is one of the large varieties of applications TF38 fits in. So, we threw some things up here that you can go promote it in, but really, TF38, it's really easier to talk about the applications it's not a good fit for than the ones it is. So the next time you're out with a customer and they need an FFC connector, ask them about their space constraints and if a vertical orientation might be more appropriate. Thank you. That's all. Any questions? Oh, I see a chat.
Just so folks have it, I put the part numbers in the sample portal that go to the TF38 and HR30. The ZK1 will be coming soon to the portal. This is a brand new product, so we're just rolling out and getting material in place. So you can keep an eye on that. And it'll be a similar format to the part number. It'll say like US-ZK1 sample-24 when it gets put into the portal. So keep an eye out for that. But those are the part numbers. Since a couple of folks asked about samples, that's a great little tool. Use that sample portal to get that information. Any other questions for us today? All right. So we look forward to seeing you in the month of November. I think it's November 13th is our next planned schedule. I know we had changed the date on this one on you. I don't expect that to happen when we get to November, so that should be great. I love the comment. Yeah, Hirose is really strong in the Flex products, so hopefully that's what you're referring to. Flex product certainly is a strong market space for us. So certainly lead that with your customers when you're talking to them. We really appreciate you getting the word out and look forward to seeing lots of DRs on any of these products. And if any questions do come up over the after you get off the call, feel free to drop us a note and we'd love to hear about your projects. So everybody have a great day.